Hey y'all, let's review this Love and Marriage Huntsville Season 6, Episode 13, titled Holt-ing Court. And if you enjoy this review, make sure you like, share, comment, and subscribe. Now let's get into it. So we continue off of Kimmy and Maurice arguing, and she's telling him it's frustrating when he goes around and around. And like a child, he's like, it's not around and around. But Kimmy is asking, what exactly does he think she should be over? And he says he thinks that she should be over the apology. And Kimmy kind of stutters and says, who says that she's waiting on any apology? And asks Maurice, is that what he came up with? And Maurice tells Kimmy that it was her determination for about 2 years. And she's looking at him like, what the fuck you mean? And then they show a clip of Kimmy saying that she thinks that there are a bunch of apologies that need to go around for Kiuwha. And Kimmy and Maurice kind of going back and forth a little bit because he's like, for what? And then Maurice tells Kimmy that he thinks that it's just a hiccup. And Kimmy says, no, it's a factual situation of where they are right now. And she thinks that they have learned to be cordial and accommodating because they're raising a king and they have to be on the same page in order to do that. Kimmy tells Maurice that Monster is about to be in high school, so for him to try and foster a relationship between her and Kiuwha now is like, for what? And Maurice says he's been trying to foster it for a long time. And Kimmy shakes her head and grins and like she's trying to bite her tongue. And Maurice continues to say that he's gotten obvious resistance from both Kimmy and Kiuwha, but it's getting better. And he asks Kimmy if she's going to be present for all of the meetings he sets. And she kind of just makes a, yeah, all right, look on her face like if he keep on, she about to hurt his feelings. Kimmy says that Kiuwha made up a lie about her, basically. And then they show a clip of Kiuwha sitting with Kimmy and Maurice, like the first time they had a meeting, saying that they weren't divorced just yet when Kimmy and Maurice started dating and how they met was sketchy. And Kimmy says Kiuwha making up that lie shows a lack of integrity in her. So when he says she's holding on to whatever it is, that's not it. She's just saying they are where they are. Maurice asks Kimmy, has she ever voiced that to Kiuwha? And Kimmy says no. And I'm just like, Maurice, why would she do that? They don't like each other, and that is okay. Kimmy asks Maurice, has Kiuwha ever asked, has anyone ever really been remotely concerned about the things that was said about her? Maurice says that he's been, and Kimmy says no. And then Maurice says that he could have gotten ugly like she wanted him to, and then Monster wouldn't be living there, and he can guarantee that. And I'm just like, where did that even come from? It's just like he uses every opportunity he can to make her look like she's not shit on TV. And usually it's the ex-wife or the mother of the kids that tries to make the new wife or the girlfriend look like and feel like shit. And yes, Maurice, the husband, is doing it all on his own just fine. And it's like, poor Kimmy a little bit, but you know, she been with this man for 7 years before they even got married, so she knows how he is. But it's just like, is loving him enough to deal with all of this for real? And I mean, Kiuwha has said what she said because that's the whole point of this conversation. But even if she is still saying what she was saying before about Kimmy, at least she's not doing it on TV. Like, Maurice is blatantly just trying to embarrass her. Kimmy tells Maurice that she thinks it's weird that he thinks a confrontation has to be ugly, and Maurice says he was handling it with kid gloves, but she wanted him to be a little more stern. And Kimmy tells him that his approach was not to approach, and Maurice says that's not true because he did, but says to Kimmy that the issue she feels deep down in her heart she's never addressed. So if he felt this way, and as her husband, why does he assume that it's all her fault for not sharing whatever he assumes is deep down in her heart? She told him in the confessional that she guards her tongue and she walks on eggshells with him. And right there, he's telling her how she feels once again. I don't know how she deals with that. Kimmy says what's funny is that she's seen him stop doing business with people because they did him wrong and he saw that they had no integrity. And because he's the kind of person who just wants to hear himself talk, you can see how he checks out when Kimmy is speaking. But he tries to rebut and he fails because Kimmy continues to get her point across and says, you live and you learn, and once you've seen someone that doesn't have integrity, you don't do business with them. And she's seen that in him. But because he never wants to be wrong, he tells Kimmy that that's probably the worst example. Kimmy tells Maurice that the one person she shouldn't have to have an extended conversation about her position in this relationship is him. and he knows what he said and what he hasn't said and what she's done and said and what she hasn't done and everything else that's transpired. And Maurice asks her, does she think having a conversation with Kiuwha and giving her the opportunity to address it would be better, and maybe having a one-on-one moving forward. And I just feel like he loves making her uncomfortable. Maurice pulls out his phone and says that he's going to set a meeting for Kimmy and Kiowa later, and says that she said she was okay with all meetings and he's just going to set another one. And I just feel like it was all because he lost the argument. Like, she had all great points. And in the confessional, Kimmy says Maurice does a lot, and he does all he can to protect Monster and Kiowa's image. And a lot of the times it's at her expense. And she kind of just shakes her head no and says that she's just not as interested in having more of those conversations. Kimmy shakes her head and rolls her eyes at Maurice and tells him that whatever he wants to do. And he says, hold up, he's about to send a text about the meeting now. And Kimmy asks facetiously if he would like to set up the agenda for this meeting since he's planning it all. And he says, nah, he's just going to let it flow so they can be on the same page. And then he was like, so they can all be on the same page, but mostly just Kimmy and Kiowa. And what it seems like is that Maurice always feels like it's been him, Kiowa, and Monster versus Kimmy, and that he still wants Kimmy to prove herself. And I don't get it when he got her raising his kid. Like, I don't understand the way he treats her. But Kimmy tells Maurice to do him, and he says he will. And Kimmy continues to say because she's in this situation because of him. And he says, so that's what she's going to do. Like, that's how you feel? And she says all the bullets that she's bit, all because he wanted to get Monster. He should think about that when he's having his long conversations about what she needs to do differently. And she gets up and leaves the room. And we leave it at that because he really was talking to the wrong one. Tisha's with her daughters doing their hair, and in her confessional, she says that today is the very first photo shoot for Macy and Mila's brand, and that the girls have been very involved in the whole process, and that it's important for her to make sure that the kids learn and grow as they grow this business and have, marketing materials out for the Black Business Expo. The girls are posing for their pictures, and it's really adorable. And in a confessional, Tisha says that starting the hair care line with her daughters is a great way to introduce them to entrepreneurship and, to do something that they like to do. And then Kiki walks into the photo shoot, and then Tisha in her confessional says, with so much going on with preparing for the Black Business Expo, it was so nice of Kiki to stop by and show support for the girls and the hair care line. Kiki tells Tisha that she's mad that she ain't tell her that there's something going on down south, and Tisha says that she didn't realize how big it was gonna be. And Kiki says, you're getting keys to the city of Mobile, Alabama, and you didn't realize how big it was? Tisha says she just guesses it's just so many things going on, it just hasn't registered yet, and that her manager has told her that she needs to take time to celebrate her because this is huge and she's focusing on everybody but herself. In a confessional, Kiki says she thinks it's amazing and that she's proud of Tisha for getting the keys to the city of Mobile, but she just wishes that she heard it from her sooner. And I'm like, look, Kiki, y'all just getting back. Please take baby steps. Don't push this lady because y'all will stop being cool in a heartbeat. But that's what cousins do. It is fine. It is okay. That's what everybody does with people, is boundaries. But Tisha kind of half-ass invites Kiki to the celebration last minute, and Kiki says she'll go, and Tisha apologizes and says that she's been inviting everybody last minute and she just didn't want Kiki to think that she was an afterthought. And Kiki was like, no, she understands because everybody has stuff going on, but she knows she's not an afterthought. And then they Kiki into the next scene. In her confessional, Mel says that she told Kimmy she wanted to take her out and get a massage after her treatments. So here they are, because this is a different kind of massage. And apparently it's one where you're doing 20,000 crunches without doing anything, where you're just laying there. And then Mel asks Kimmy if she's done with her treatments and stuff. And Kimmy says not yet, but she genuinely feels better. than she had in the last few months, and the biggest thing is that she's just tired right now. Mel says, well, she bets Maurice and Monster and Jalen are helping out a lot. Kimmy says, well, they're still working on that part, and everything isn't at 100% with Monster and Maurice helping out. And Mel says, really? And Kimmy says, well, he's 16, and, he doesn't really want to do chores and stuff. And she says that trickles down into her relationship with her Maurice. Kimmy tells Mel how Maurice wanted to have a meeting with Kiuwha and how it was productive. And then Mel asks Kimmy if she and Kiuwha are better with, a cheesy little grin on her face. And Kimmy says that they have taken small steps forward and they won't ever be besties because of some of the things that's happened, like I was saying that Kimmy interfered with their marriage. And Mel flips her hair and asks Kimmy if she felt like she interfered with their marriage. And Kimmy says, of course not. And Mel says, okay. And Kimmy says, absolutely not. And Mel says, well, she and Kimmy, never had that conversation or talked about the situation. It says that she heard it implied, but she, never came out and asked Kimmy what really happened. Mel asked Kimmy if when she and Maurice met, was he and Kiowa already divorced? And Kimmy says no, they were in the process and had the papers signed already. And Mel asked Kimmy, so why does Kiowa think that you interfered with their marriage? And Kimmy says that even though both Kiowa and Maurice had signed the papers, Kiowa was talking about reconciliation. And that's where the lie of Kimmy getting with Maurice while he was still married to Kiowa came from. Kimmy says it's unfortunate because she says after Kiuwha made the implication, she kind of just ran with it. And Mel asks, is Kiuwha here in Huntsville? And Kimmy says, yeah, they're supposed to link up, and Maurice was the one who suggested it. No, Kimmy, tell Mel what really happened, that Maurice is forcing you to talk to that lady again after you said that you ain't had nothing to talk about. Mel asks Kimmy if she's excited to sit with Kiowa, and Kimmy kind of hesitates to answer for a second. And then the massage lady comes in, and then Mel asks Kimmy how she felt about the last Core 6 meeting. And Kimmy tells Melody that it sounded like Mel is the one that won't be participating, even if Tisha and Marcel come around on the payment plan situation. Mel tells Kimmy about how she met with Tisha, and she says she expressed her feelings and thoughts, and she appreciated Tisha not questioning them. Mel then says how she mentioned to Tisha that because she and Martel have the custody battle going on, she doesn't want to do anything with him or to try to even be around him. But even if Martel wasn't a part of the Black Expo, she still wouldn't do it. And Kimmy says that she thinks it's admirable that Mel and Martel can coexist from time to time, and says that she doesn't always know the status of their court case, just that it's been taking a while. Mel says how draining it is and how difficult it's been, and Martel asking for full custody but not turning in the paperwork, and people don't know how exhausting it is for someone to try and take your children, and he knows the burden that she's carrying, and for him to say that he wants full custody is crazy to her. Kimmy tells Mel that it's an emotional roller coaster because it's not like it's a stranger trying to take the kids. It's their father, and that's the whole mind fuck that goes into situations like this when you're trying to make the right decisions for your children, and that at some point she and Martel have to learn to meet in the middle. And Melody's face looked like she really wasn't trying to hear that shit, and she rolled her eyes, but that was the end of the scene. Tisha's getting her hair done and is waiting for someone to arrive, but lets her stylist know that she's upset with the person that's on the way, so she's ready to talk to them now. And I'm just thinking, while you're getting your hair done so you can embarrass that girl in front of your stylist, fuck out of here, Tisha. In her confessional, Tisha says Mobile was awesome and she was with her family and she received the key to the city. And then they show clips of Tisha receiving her key. And then Tisha says that, but by Kiki not showing up to Mobile is just another letdown. And I was like, so Kiki was mad at Tisha for not telling her about her event, for her to not even show up. That's kind of wild. And then Tisha says that the reason she stopped inviting Kiki to things was because she kept letting her down over and over and over again and not showing up. And says that she feels like this is confirmation for her that it's okay to move forward without Kiki being a part of her life. So Kiki shows up, they hug and stuff, and she talks about how she's been hot a lot recently and that the doctors need to help her and because she changed her medicines. And in the confessional, Tisha says it's really good to hear that Kiki is finally getting help with her addiction. However, she needs to see some action because Kiki is flaky and unreliable. Kiki asked Tisha how the event in Mobile went, and Tisha says it went really good, but she wanted to share that with Kiki. But when she texted her, she just felt like it was another excuse. And Kiki is looking shocked and asked Tisha, like, if she honestly thought that she just didn't want to be there. And I know a lot of people are going to be like, oh, Tisha's being sensitive and all of that stuff. But let's just think about Kiki's track record for a second. She managed to show up to Mel's little sleepover thing to talk about Tisha, and then show up to Mel's little tea party thing, and then show up to Martell's little event where, you know, everybody was getting into it with Tiffany and she was saying all this stuff to Sheree. But I can't really recall a lot of the times Kiki has showed up for Tisha on the show. She even went to Miss Wanda's little Show Enough Wanda baked potato thing that they had. But I can't really recall Kiki showing up a lot for Tisha. So before you call her sensitive, you know, I think that's where she's coming from. Like, Kiki manages to be there for everybody else's events, but, you know, for this one, for Tisha, not so much. Tisha tells Kiki that her actions should back up her words, and wanting to be there and not making the effort to get there is another thing. Kiki says the thing is that she did make the effort and she didn't have transportation to get to the event, and that it's not that she just didn't want to come. And Tisha isn't really fazed, and she says something just always comes up with Kiki, and when she's supposed to be somewhere and she isn't there, it's always an excuse. And Kiki says it wasn't intentional, and Tisha says it never is though, and it's just hurtful. Kiki continues to try to explain herself and says, well, what could she have done? You know, she couldn't use her car and her husband was out of town. And Tisha takes a deep breath because she seems to be over all the excuses, you know. Again, you know, Kiki really could have just not been in a position to go, but like I said, she manages to make it to everybody else's events but Tisha's. But says that she was mad at Tisha for not hearing about it from her, but you still didn't show up, so whatever, Kiki. But Tisha says that you can't keep allowing someone to hurt you, and you have to make a change to lower your expectations and to remove them out of your life, and says that she told Marceau that she has to protect her feelings because she was really hurt. And Kiki says, yeah, you do. And Kiki apologizes again for letting Tisha down and says that she guarantees that it wasn't intentional and she really wanted to be there. Tisha says that she feels like it's always an excuse. And then Kiki continues to apologize, but Tisha says that to change the subject, you know, they're having their Black Expo thing and it's coming up, and she's telling her what it's about, and she asks Kiki that hopefully she'll be there, and Kiki says that she will be, and Tisha says that, you know, she just needs to see her actions back up her words, and then they end the scene. If you think Kiki is going to show up to the Black Expo event, put a 1 in the comments. If you think she isn't, put a 9. Mel arrives at Chris and Nail's house and says the last time she saw them was at court, and asked if they knew that they were being subpoenaed. And Nail says nope, and Mel looks fake shocked, in my opinion. And in the confessional, Mel says that once again, Martel has involved the Fletchers in what they have going on and subpoenaed them without a heads up to their court date. And to her, that's not how you move with friends. And knowing that they know both parties involved, you don't put them in their BS, so she felt like it would be right to stop by and fill them in a little bit. And then Nail says that she was pissed and upset, you know, she can't lie because she doesn't like being subpoenaed to court. And Mel says what's crazy is that the people that got subpoenaed, well, that's Martel got subpoenaed and testified, all said that both Mel and Martel take care of the kids equally, and says that it was just very weird on Martel's part. So we're with Martel and his mom, and he's saying that he's still exhausted from court. And in his confessional, he says that he and Mel had a showdown in court, and that he and Mel and his mom and Chris Fletcher and Mel's brother Marcus all took the stand too, and says that it's crazy that they have to pull friends and family into this court thing. So he's visiting with his mom to discuss it. Martel tells his mom that it was hurtful, and Miss Marlene says that it was hurtful for her too because she hates the fact that they're in a courtroom about their children. and that those people really don't give a fuck. And Martell says to his mom that, well, she didn't get to see much because she was on the stand for all about 4 minutes. Marlene kind of giggles and says, well, what was she supposed to do? And Martell says she knows everything going on and that they talk about it all the time. So when she has an opportunity like this, she's supposed to be sticking it to him, telling him everything. And when she got up there, she didn't say much, and it disappointed him to the core. They argue about how she was just answering the questions she was asked and she wasn't giving out too much info. And Martell says that's what she's supposed to do. And Marlene says, don't come at her like that because she's never done this kind of thing before. And Martell tells his mom that she was supposed to show up and show out. And she says, well, you too. And he says, well, he did. And she was like, yeah, she did, son, because, she'd be trying to just get him to shut up. And then Martell mentions how Chris got on the stand too. And even that didn't, do enough for him on his behalf. And then they switch back to Melody, Chris, and Nell. Mel says she feels like Chris answered everything honestly, and that he said he ain't going to jail for nobody for like perjury and stuff. And Chris said, yeah, he did answer everything truthfully. And Mel says even her lawyer asked how many times has Martell moved since the divorce, and that the house Martell is in now, Chris is listed for sale. And Nell says, ain't it about to sell? And Chris says, yes, under contract. And Mel looks fake shocked again and says, ooh, child, so he's going to have to move again? Can you imagine the stress? I'm not going to lie. When she be acting all phony shocked, it's funny. She did give me a little laugh. And I only say fake shocked because we already know Mel know good and damn well what's going on with Martell's busted ass. So when she in front of the cameras, I think it's just funny, her little show that she put on. But Mel says that's probably why Martell asked her to pay for his attorney fees, because he needed that money. And Nell laughs and asks if Martell really asked that, and Mel says yeah, he did. And Nell asks, is Martell broke? And Melody says she doesn't know, she doesn't keep up with his finances. And Chris says that this is some of the things that he talked to Martell about and that he would have to face when getting a divorce and going to court and stuff. And he tried to tell Martell, and Mel says yeah, you did plenty of times. And in the confessional, Mel says that when she and Martell were married, he enjoyed the lifestyle that came with a dual income household. So now he must be having some cash flow issues, so she doesn't know why he feels due to some of the money that she's making. Martell tells Miss Marlene he really wants to know why Melody wants to go to trial, and that it still bothers him to this day why she want to go. And Marlene asks, so she don't even know why she want to go to court? And Martell says because Mel said she wanted full custody. And Marlene says, but why now when she didn't have it before? Melody tells the Fletchers that the reason they are in court for custody is because Martell and his attorney tried to be slick filing the custody papers a half hour before the protection order hearing that they were there for, so he wouldn't have to do it. Marlene mentions to Martell that didn't Melody mention something about 6 months, and then Martell fake falls out and says, what kind of stuff is that? And that Mel really asked about having the kids for 6 months on and 6 months off, and he asked her was she really serious about that. And Melody says yeah, did he want to do it? And he said he just shook his head and said he couldn't believe her. And then Marlene asks who does that. Martell says he told her that he can barely go a week without his children. I'm sorry, Martell, but I can't believe that, because you were not worried about them kids before. Mel tells Nell that nobody could ever say that she didn't fight for her kids and that they have anything to worry about, when being with her, like being clothed and fed and anything like that. And yet here she is going to war for her babies who she loves and takes care of. Martell says that if Melody can't and doesn't want to deal with the kids, then they didn't have to go to court and that she can give them to him. Sir, your kids are not a toy to give and take back. They're not a fucking yo-yo. At the end of the day, these are two hurt people who don't know how to make this situation work, because even though they are their children, everything that they had before is now completely split and separated. So when it comes to their kids, they can't cut their kids in half and have some here and some there. They have to really, really figure this out and work this out. But Martell can't sit here and say that Melody can't and doesn't want to deal with her kids. That's some unfair shit. And I will tell you that right now. Like I said before, I don't like Mel, but this whole Martell thing, she hasn't done nothing wrong. And for him to say that if she can't and doesn't want to deal with her kids, she can give them to him. That's not cool. Because when has she ever said that? I don't really feel like she would ever say anything like that. I don't think he would say anything like that either. But it's just the point. Like, chill, Martell, because he got too much smoke right now for somebody who don't got shit. Chris tells Mel that he had a talk with Martell and told him a few times to just drop the whole custody battle, and that they didn't have to bring everything up and talk about the baby situation, which he thinks changed everything. And then Nail asks, who won? And then Melody says nobody really, but she will say that for the judge's ruling, she's appealing it because she felt like that there was clearly a bias there in Martell's favor. I saw on a blog a few months ago that the judge was kind of like in favor of Martell, so we'll see how true that really is. But Melody says that in the judge's final ruling, she says that it's clear that the father has the best interest of the children at heart, but that the court can't say the same for the mother. And Nail gasps, and Mel says, and guess why? It's because she changed her number and didn't give it to Martell. And says that Martell admitted to following her on dates, recording her and stuff, but the judge didn't say anything about that. And Nail says maybe Martell made the judge feel sorry for him. Now, I'm not a legal mind, but that is harassment, and this was like a few seasons back when we found out Martell was following Mel on dates and stuff and recording her, and he was saying he can because I remember she had that black bob and she went to go meet him while he was trying to do some construction work with one of the guys who did have a builder's license the first time. So I mean, for the judge not to say that was an issue, because that's her safety, and she don't feel safe with him. But her changing these numbers gotta stop. That's getting on my nerves. And I get it, she probably doing it because she don't want to talk to Martell, but damn, it's like, how many disguises does she have? How many times she want to change her damn number? But that's her way of not allowing Martell to have access to her, so I get it. It's like a yin-yang. Martell tells his mom that before they left court, Mel sent him her new number and says that the judge heard him out about Mel being in contempt by not giving him her phone number. And in a confessional, Martell says all the paperwork shows that he was co-parenting correctly and that Mel wasn't, and says that the papers actually say that she wasn't co-parenting properly. And then Marlene tells Martell to keep being a good father to his children, and he says that he is. And that's basically her main spiel. Just, you a good man, son. You a good father, son. That's all the advice she be really giving him, for real. Mel says how are they going to get at her about not sharing her number with somebody who's admitted to harassing her, but he kept ignoring about 4 of the court's orders that the judge sent out, and that she just kept giving him extensions. And then her confessional, Mel says that she's considering filing an appeal when it comes to this case because she feels like the judge didn't take everything into consideration, and that, yes, it's ideal to share your number with the other co-parent, but not when they've done all the things that Martell has, that the judge missed and just dismissed. And Mel tells Nail that she's going to figure it out. In her confessional, Kimmy says that she agreed to have the sit down with Kiuwha to give them an opportunity to have a few conversations. First of all, everything in regards to Monster, and everything else probably is going to be touched upon, things that happened in the past that got them to where they are, and that if they're going to move forward, they actually need to be addressed. And Kimmy, let's be honest, you didn't agree to have a sit down. Maurice told you that you was going to go and sit down with Kiuwha. So, let's keep it $150, please. Or should I say, Kimmy let that man tell her what she was going to do. But Kimmy tells Kiuwha that she was hoping that they could have a little chat and discuss anything in regards to Monster and the conversation that they had. And Kiuwha says that Monster is carrying around some emotional baggage and that he just needs his mom. Like I've been saying all season, he just needs his mom. Kimmy asks if when Kiuwha was talking to Monster about being more present and around, what would that look like for her, because it could be helpful to him. And Kiuwha says that that's something she'll have to figure out now that she knows that it's something that's needed more than before. But she says that it's going to happen. She just doesn't know exactly how. And in a confessional, Kimmy says she likes the concept of Kiuwha planning to come to Huntsville more often in the best interest of Monster, and for him emotionally it would be good. And Kimmy says, but as for her and Kiuwha, she hopes that they'll start to get a little better as she's in Huntsville more often, but sometimes they take 2 steps forward and 3 steps back, and maybe a little time will put things on a better track for them. Do y'all remember in like the earlier seasons, maybe 3 or 4, when Maurice was trying to move Kiowa down there to Huntsville, that he had a whole house ready for her and all of that stuff? Do you think that's what they're going to end up doing later on? If you think that Maurice is going to move Kiowa into Huntsville, into his little house, put a 3 in the comments. If you don't think so, put a 5. Kimmy tells Kiowa that Maurice says that they should go out and have a talk. And Kiowa says, talks about what? And she kind of laughs. And that was the first real toothy smile I ever seen from Kiowa, so yeah. And then Kimmy says that Maurice said that they should talk about what happened in the past and about moving forward. And Kimmy feels that they are in a good place and that she doesn't want to mess that up or go backwards, and tells Kiowa that even when she wasn't happy with her in the beginning, it wasn't a big deal for her because Kiowa was in a space that she had to get out of, and that Kiowa has no idea how many times she told Maurice that maybe this is what she's feeling, and giving the single mom perspective all the time, and that she was upset, but she had no idea that Kimmy was fighting with Maurice for Kiowa, and Kiowa nods her head. And Kimmy says, however, she still holds on to things that Kiowa would say, and that she would imply that she was the one that caused their divorce. And Kiowa asks, well, what did she say? And Kimmy says that she was saying that she was seeing Maurice while they were still married, and that was never the case, and that they all know it wasn't the case. And then Kiowa kind of makes a face like, Kiowa tells Kimmy that she doesn't know what she wants her to say, and Kimmy tells Kiowa that there was an opportunity for her to say no, she wasn't the side chick, and Kiowa says that she never said that Kimmy was a side chick. And Kimmy jumps up and says, even if you didn't say it, she surely saw comments about Kimmy being a side chick. Kiowa says that she doesn't do interviews or anything like that, and she didn't know that Kimmy felt like she was responsible for what they were saying. And then they show a clip of a tweet calling Kimmy a side chick, and Kimmy tells Kiowa that she felt like that was a lack of integrity on her part, and then they show the to be continued. And that's the end of this review. So if you enjoyed it, make sure you like, share, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.